At my son's wedding, his fiancée pulled out a chair for me to sit down, and I fell to the floor. "Your place is on the floor," she said. The guests laughed until the groom's mother turned to me and said, "Ma'am, is that you? If you're watching this video, tell me where you're from or what time it is for you." I washed my hands twice before I left the apartment, but the smell of bleach lives in the knuckles. I could feel it in the stiff skin between finger and thumb. That place where rubber gloves bite. I scrubbed again anyway, the way I do before church, and dried off with the clean towel I keep for Sundays and big moments. Tonight was both, according to my son. "Mom, please," Bobby had said over the phone that morning. She made a 7:30 reservation. "Wear the navy dress Aunt Carol likes." "Yes. And try to be flexible." He laughed a little when he said it, like flexibility was a trick you could do on command. By the time I locked the apartment, the cold had turned sharp. My block in Kensington, a working-class part of Philadelphia, kept its lights modest. Mr. Chen was walking his dog under the thin glow of the corner lamp. He waved his gloved hand. "You look nice, Bob," he said. "Give that young woman a good stare. People get polite when stared at." "It's just dinner," I said. "That's when stories start. Good night." The bus chugged me downtown, past the old brick school and the row of storefront churches into a district that spoke its money quietly. Glass, metal, curated warm light. People who had never cleaned a hospital floor in their lives told stories about artisanal water. The main city park hid its bare trees behind a halo of lamps. Across from it, the restaurant glittered like it had its own weather. The Golden Swan had a door so heavy you needed a commitment to use it. Inside, a woman with a calm voice said my name like it belonged to her. "Mrs. Mitchell, your party is waiting." Bobby stood to hug me. He wore a suit that fit him like he'd been measured for success. That's what I thought. And then I thought better of saying it. He had my late husband's shoulders and my mother's way of holding a room without trying. Jessica Vale rose a second later, a beat late, as if she had to be sure the moment was worth standing for. She was all sharp lines and polished ease. The watch on her wrist flashed like a hard wink. The server behind her hovered, already anticipating. "Barbara," she said, not Mrs. Mitchell, but not Barb either. The name my sisters use when they want me to feel like a girl. "Great to finally sit down. Big night." She extended her hand. Her grip was showy. I matched it. I let go first. "Mom, look," Bobby said, pulling out his phone. A video lit his face. The proposal from last week. Jessica on one knee on a footbridge near the park. City lights soft behind them. A violinist appeared from nowhere. She'd hired a photographer too, according to the captions. His friends filled the comments with fireworks and crying emojis. "You look happy," I said. He was. That's the problem of joy. You can put it into anyone's hands. The server poured water as if the pictures were made of gold. Jessica didn't look at the menu long. She pointed. "We'll curate a tasting," she said. Then to me, "Trust me, they do it better if you let them." "She knows this place," Bobby said. "She brings clients." I nodded. I am not a woman who fights over vegetables. The dishes came out like small art. Color, height, mystery. I ate each thing and tried to name the flavors without sounding like a tourist. We talked. That is, Bobby talked and we listened. And sometimes Jessica redirected gently with her palm like a traffic officer. I answered what I was asked. Where I learned nursing. How long I've been at Presbyterian Hospital. My day job doing maintenance and light cleaning after I retired from bedside work. Helping out at St. Mark's when the youth group needs a steady hand. "We love that old school work ethic," Jessica said. "It's honestly inspiring." "Thank you," I said and squeezed my fingers together under the table to stop them from tapping. "And it's so good you've stayed in the neighborhood," she added. "Stability matters. My mother keeps extending her deployment rotations. Europe is a time trap. We'll see if we can pry her away for the wedding." "Still traveling," Bobby said. They FaceTimed from a military base with marble floors. It's her season, Jessica said, as if seasons belong to certain people. Speaking of seasons, May is ideal for Riverside Manor. We penciled in a date. Everyone's booked out these days, so we had to move quickly. You understand fast decisions in your line of work, I'm sure. I looked at Bobby. He had that hopeful tilt to his head he used to have when he brought me a crayon drawing. I told myself to hold steady. Moving quick can be good, I said. But it runs up against the rest of life. You know how it is. Jessica smiled. A sharp thing softened at the edges. Totally. We're flexible. We just want to get the framework in place. The wine kept finding their glasses. My water did, too. The server described each course like a small sermon. Locally foraged, he said once. I wondered what that meant in a city where you couldn't find a free parking spot. I kept my hands on my lap. I had scrubbed them, but I didn't want to put fingerprints on the table that cost more than my first car. I told Jessica you were protective of me, Bobby said. In a good way. That's a mother's job, I said. And I told Bobby that protection has to evolve. Jessica leaned back so the watch could catch the light. We're building a modern partnership. Old school respect is sweet, but we're not reenacting a past. I felt the old heat rise and kept my face still. Respect isn't old. It's a tool. Tools. She brightened. I love that metaphor. The right tool for the job. Yes. Different tools for different eras. Tools don't care about eras, I said. They care about hands. Bobby put his fingers on my wrist, a quiet touch, enough to cool the edge of my words. Mom, he said, and there was a little plea in it. I reined in. Jessica waved off the server, then waved him back to add a bottle of something with bubbles. This is a celebration, she said. Also, small note on the planning. Bobby and I talked about keeping the ceremony tight with a reception that's elevated. We'll handle the big items. Obviously, Bobby said, looking at me, I want you there for everything, but can you be flexible if work gets tricky? I can make space, I said, thinking of the patient family who needed me to sit with their grandmother on Thursday. The one that put my rent on time every month. Thinking of how space is something you make with your hands until your knuckles ache. We appreciate that, Jessica said. Scheduling is brutal. She leaned in. Also, small etiquette thing. Some of the older traditions can feel, I don't know, performative. Like mothers making toasts about protecting their little boy. We'll sculpt something contemporary. I don't need to toast, I said. I need to stand up straight when my son walks in. She blinked. For a second, the face dropped, then returned. Beautiful. We'll make sure you have a good line of sight. The dishes slowed, then stopped. A dessert arrived that looked like a snow drift under glass. We scraped at it carefully. The room had softened around us, the way expensive rooms do when they decide you belong there for one night. The server slipped the leather folder onto the table with the practiced neutral of a referee placing a ball. He set it just to my right, next to the water I hadn't asked for, but kept receiving. Jessica glanced down, then up, and let the folder sit as if it had chosen its spot on its own. Thank you again for coming, Barbara, she said to me, not to Bobby, though the gratitude felt aimed at the tableware. This means a lot to him. She didn't touch the folder. She touched her watch band, a soft tap. The server backed away like he'd been trained to do in seminars. I looked at Bobby. He was watching both of us, careful as a tightrope walker. I reached for the folder and opened it. The numbers glowed. $347. I have paid bigger bills. Hospital rooms. A casket. The numbers themselves aren't the story. It's the route they take to land on your lap. Jessica kept talking. Weightless words about calendars and rehearsal photos. She never looked at the slip. I set my card down. My thumb hesitated on the edge. Bobby said, Mom, you don't. It's fine, I said. I meant it the way women mean it when what they mean is not fine at all, but they refuse to burn the furniture to prove it. The server swept in. "Thank you, Mrs. Mitchell." Jessica lifted her glass. "To family," she said. "To family," I said, because the word is like a vow. You honor it even when someone else bends it out of shape. When the slip returned, the pen waited like a test. I tipped the way my mother taught me to when people work on their feet. The total blinked. $362. I signed my name slowly so the letters wouldn't crowd each other. The pen left a small divot in the paper where my hand pressed down harder than needed. Jessica rose, finally touching the folder to slide it toward the edge, as if she were the one dismissing it. She clapped my shoulder with her fingertips. "You're a lady," she said. "Bobby gets that from you." "He gets a lot from me," I said quietly. On the sidewalk, the night breathed cold back into us. Jessica handed Bobby his coat, then took his elbow in a way that read as care from a distance, but felt like possession up close. She turned to me with a public smile already arranged. "Next steps," she said. "We'll get a group thread going. Our planner has a portal. You'll love it. It keeps everyone aligned." "Aligned is good," I said. "And small favor. We had to put a hold on one of the venues. There's a minor deposit timing hiccup. Doesn't matter. We'll resolve. Just flagging in case emails come through." Her voice had the texture of something rehearsed and meant to look structured. "We'll talk when it does," I said. She nodded as if I'd agreed to something else. A car slid up without being called, like it could smell her watch. She opened the back door for Bobby. "Call me when you get home," I said to him. "Always," he said. She kissed his cheek with her eyes on me, then climbed in, and the car melted into the line of lights along the park. The bus stop was a block down. I let the cold tighten my coat around my ribs. My phone buzzed in my pocket like it had an opinion. The bank app had a gentle tone for bad news. It warned me about the small stack of bills that drew from the same shallow puddle. I stood under the bus shelter and read each line like it was a diagnosis. There was an autopay due in the morning that might reach out and touch air. I imagined the chain of things that would fall. A week can turn on one slip. A young couple came to the corner laughing. Her heels were the kind that make a city sound confident. He kept his arm close but not possessive. It made them both taller. I looked away. "That's a private thing." The bus hissed up and opened its mouth. I climbed in, fed it what it asked for, and sat by the window. The driver muttered, "Hello." We rolled past the dark glass and the lit glass and the places that sold stories and bottles. We passed the park again. The footbridge from the video looked ordinary now. It probably always had. When I got off 2 blocks from home, Mr. Chen was back at his window, a square of yellow against the brick. He lifted his hand again. I lifted mine. The dog barked once, satisfied to have put his note on the evening. Inside, I hung the navy dress on the back of a chair and set the clean towel in the sink. I poured water into a chipped glass. The apartment quieted around me. I looked at the photo on the shelf, the one where Bobby is on my shoulders in a park much smaller than the one downtown. His hands in my hair like reins, his mouth open in a laugh that made strangers laugh too. My phone buzzed again. Bobby sending a heart and a thank you, then a note. "Please don't read into that moment. She meant well, Mom." I typed back, "Get home safe." Then I stared at the words until the screen dimmed. The truth is you always read into things when the story is yours. At the sink, I washed my hands a 3rd time. My palms smelled like lemon soap now. The bleach in the knuckles held its ground. I dried them on the towel and folded it square. The second buzz of the night was a message from a number I didn't recognize. It was a link to a shared album, the kind the planner probably used for inspiration. I didn't open it, not because I was stubborn, though I am, but because I could feel the shape of something I didn't want to name yet. I sat at the table with the envelope of that month's obligations and a pencil. I don't do budgets on apps. A pencil makes you feel the math in your hand. I drew boxes and dates and little notes to my future self. I left one square blank where the autopay might go wrong and drew a circle around it. A small warning bell. I don't remember when the noise in the hallway started. Probably while I was drawing circles. Boots, laughter, a door that didn't like its frame. My neighbor's nephew was home from a stint somewhere he didn't want to talk about. The world kept going with or without my squares. My phone lit again with Bobby's name. "We made it," he wrote. Then a second message, a photo of his hand on Jessica's sleeve. The ring bright as a new coin, her cufflink, a tiny swan. I noticed because I noticed that the hand near hers wasn't resting. It was pressing. A little weight for the camera. I set the phone face down. I told myself I would be flexible. I said it out loud in the empty room to hear how it sounded coming from me. Flexible. The word felt like a belt stretched too tight. Later, when the heater ticked like a clock with a limp, I stood at the window and looked at the street. A woman I didn't know walked under the lamp and stopped to look up at the sky. She had the posture of someone who used to stand straighter. She put her hands in her pockets and tilted her chin to the cold. When she moved on, I could still see her. That's how some moments work. You see them for a second, then they set up house behind your eyes. At the restaurant, when the server set the leather folder at my right hand, and Jessica pretended it had arrived in a neutral zone, her face dropped for half a breath. Not exhaustion, not distraction. Something like relief. Relief that the story she needed me to play fit without a squeak. I had missed it in the moment. The bus window and the quiet room gave it back. I could see the exact shape of it now, the way you see a dent in a fender when the light is strong. A mask slipping. I stood there a long time, hands on the sill, breathing the kind of breath you learn in places where panic doesn't help. The city sounded like a worker locking a toolbox. That sound always steadies me. I made a promise then, not the kind you say out loud. I promised to keep my eyes open and my mouth measured. Tools don't work without patience. Neither do people. When I finally turned off the kitchen light, the navy dress made a dark hill on the chair. I left it there. Tomorrow I would carry it to the closet, and the day after that, and the day after that, until a day came when someone would try to take the chair out from under me. On that day, I told myself I would already be standing. The morning after the dinner, the towel by the sink still smelled like lemon and bleach. I folded it into a square and put it back in the drawer the way you put back a tool you're not finished with. The phone hummed on the counter. "You up?" Bobby wrote. "Always," I typed. He called. "Mom, about last night. Thank you. And can you be flexible over the next few weeks?" The planner's opening windows. Jessica says it's a scheduling game. "I can be flexible," I said. "My neck just doesn't need to bend for sport." He laughed. "I love that sound. It makes the room bigger. We added you to the portal. Don't be scared. It's just a checklist with confetti." A link arrived. A site bloomed. Tabs for timeline, seating, wardrobe, vows, brand palette. Little blinking dots showed other people moving live inside it, leaving comments like birds hopping in fresh snow. Someone named Trevor. The planner welcomed me with a video that made everything sound effortless. There was a task flagged in yellow. Hold on Riverside Manor expires Friday. Confirm deposit. A note below it, minor timing hiccup. Card on file has a travel notice. Will resolve. I could see Jessica's initials on the note. Clean as printed steel. I backed out of the tab. I don't like to sign my name where I haven't stood. At Presbyterian Hospital, the maintenance crew had come back tired from a midweek emergency cleaning. I like mornings in the supply room. Equipment wakes like animals and tells you what needs doing in a language you can answer. I was elbow deep in organizing surgical linens when Linda from upstairs drifted in with her coffee and jokes. "Mitchell," she said, watching me work like it was a show. "Big woman of the hour. Heard you're getting an elevated reception." Elevated. She pointed up with her cup. Jessica's word. She's got a gift for the pitch. She does, I said. I kept my eyes on the linens. You can respect someone's talent and still not want it aimed at your life. Linda grinned. She was telling us at lunch something about cutting the corny mom stuff and crafting a contemporary narrative. People our age hate speeches. No offense. None taken, I said. I smoothed a sheet and stacked it with precision. Tools make you tell the truth with your hands, even when your mouth stays polite. She sipped. Also said you were a salt of the earth type. Who gets it? Not every mother can stand down. Sometimes old school women don't know their place. She winced. Her words, not mine. I looked at her then, just long enough. Everyone knows their place when the work starts, Linda. She raised a palm. Harmless again. You'll love Riverside though. My cousin did it there. Chairs like sculptures. Chairs, I said and set the stack square. At lunch, I opened the portal again. The seating chart was a galaxy of neat circles. Each star a table with little initials orbiting. Trevor had left me a note, draft only. We'll refine with families. My name floated near the back, a placeholder. Jessica's mother had a table by the garden doors, a little icon of leaves. Someone had pasted in a color-coded etiquette sheet that explained what they called modern etiquette, first looks and parent optics. The sheet used words like flow and minimize friction and modern courtesy. I read it twice, then I closed the tab and called the number under Trevor's greeting. He answered with cheerful speed. This is Trevor. This is Bobby's mother, Barbara. Hi, Barbara. You're in the system. How can I help? About the hold on Riverside. Do you have an instrument on file? Instrument. She laughed like I'd told a joke. We have a card. We're just waiting for a green light after a travel alert. It happens when people hop time zones. So you don't need mine. No, ma'am. Not unless you'd like to be the primary. Most parents find it cleaner not to be. I find clean period to be best, I said. He made a pleased noise, the way planners do when someone sounds reasonable. We'll ping you once the hold is cleared. In the afternoon, a new chat lit up my phone. Family Core, created by Jessica. The profile image was a tiny swan cufflink. Of course it was. She added Bobby, me, Uncle Ray, and two names I didn't know, Brandon and Patricia. She opened with a paragraph that read like a memo. Team, she wrote. We're streamlining. Trevor will quarterback. A few alignments. No speeches at the reception. We'll do a montage instead. Ceremony to be tight. Celebratory attire to hit our palate. Earth neutrals. Navy for mother of the groom. Okay. For formality, photos pre-ceremony to manage light. VIP seating reflects sponsor dynamics and elders. Everyone good. Bobby sent a heart and, I love you both. Uncle Ray sent 6 sunflowers and, I'm making cookies anyway. I typed, I'm available most evenings after 6. Saturdays I have choir rehearsal till 10. Sundays I'm at church. I'll make space for fittings. Just put them on a day that isn't already full with other people's needs. Jessica replied in a breath. Totally. We'll flex. Sunday. Let's keep that open for a tasting. Trevor says weekends at the Golden Swan go fast for couples. Sundays are spoken for where I'm from, I wrote. Could we do a weekday? A pause. We'll circle back. Brandon chimed in with a glittering tone I could feel even through text. We're doing place cards with calligraphy. So chic. I'll sit with Bobby's college friends to keep the energy up. Uncle Ray wrote, I'll sit wherever I can see my boy's face. I put the phone down and organized medical supplies in the storage room with a rhythm that pleased me. Click, 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 click. You stop when the spec says stop. Metal teaches you the difference between firm and forced. That evening, the door buzzed. Mr. Chen stood there with a container under a towel and the dog tugging at its leash. Taste this and tell me if it's wedding worthy, he said. I know a girl. If you're the cook, it's worthy, I said. I tasted the dumplings and tasted the years we've all lived on this block. That's a flavor you can't order. He watched my face. What's the matter? Nothing a pencil and time won't organize. Women love pencils when a broom would do, he said and set the container on my counter. Anyway, the girl. She talks with her hands like an auctioneer. Fast hands don't always carry weight. I smiled. She's marrying my son. That's one fact, he said. There will be others. Before bed, I checked the portal. The hold at Riverside showed resolved. No confetti, just a green check. No one had asked me for a number. The yellow flag on the task had gone pale. The next day, church called. The youth choir needed an extra practice block because a volunteer had to care for her father. I took the hour. Kids showed up sleepy and then loud, which is the right order. After, I stood with the director by the cracked steps while the winter sun felt around for warmth. You'll be busy soon, she said. We'll manage around you. We'll manage around each other, I said. The family core pinged as I walked home. Jessica again. Micro-fittings tomorrow at 5:30. Trevor has a slot. It's the only window before vendor week. I typed, I have choir until 6. I can make it by 7. If that doesn't work, I'll take a later slot. Or you can go without me and I'll catch up. Clothes fit better when you're not rushing. The dots bounced. We're trying to keep the train on the tracks, she wrote. I'm sure the choir can flex for a wedding. Big picture, Barbara. I stopped on the sidewalk. My breath made a small cloud that stayed where it was put. The choir is a wedding every Sunday, I wrote back. Big picture, no reply. The dots blinked and died. At work the following day, a woman I didn't know from the upstairs floor came down to leave her form and her opinion. Word is Jessica's a genius at brand. Says she's modernizing the vibe, cutting the cringe. Refreshing, right? My mom did a whole speech at my brother's wedding about keeping him safe. Times change. No offense. She had Linda's tone, but not her eyes. None taken, I said. I checked her paperwork. It was incomplete. She chuckled. Jessica's funny though. She said she's coaching you into the role. Not every mother is coachable. She winked like it was a kindness. She'll keep you off the floor. I straightened. Off the what? You know, the old school my house, my rules floor. She said some moms still want to plant there. She shrugged. Just her way of talking in metaphors. She's a storyteller. She is, I said. I wrote down what her paperwork needed and handed her the slip. Stories are powerful. They should be handled with both hands. She pocketed the note and went upstairs to a world with elevators. That night, Trevor called. 2 micro choices, he chirped. 1, do you want a special moment before the ceremony or do we keep it streamlined? 2, Bobby mentioned a family prayer. Would you be comfortable if we keep that private? Private means what here? Not on mic. Private is fine, I said, though the word did not sit right. I don't need a mic to talk to God. He laughed, relieved. Love it. And the seating. Just know we might shift things as RSVPs settle. There's a sponsor family that needs to be near the garden doors for wheelchair access. We're balancing. Balance is work, I said. I do it all day. You're a dream, he said and hung up to chase other blinking dots. Later, Linda came by the supply room with a paper bag. Leftovers from an upstairs lunch, she said. You want them. I've got dinner, I said. Give it to that kid delivering flyers. She's running. I pointed to the door where a girl was doing her best against the wind. Linda nodded and jogged after her. She came back smiling. She said, Thanks, Ms. L. Enjoy it while it lasts, I said. Titles age fast. Near midnight, the portal pushed a notification. Attire guidance updated. The document had photos of dresses like quiet shadows, and a sentence that read, "Mother of the groom in classic navy encouraged. Any jewelry with pattern discouraged so as not to distract from the couple's minimalist aesthetic." I own 2 brooches with patterns. One was my mother's. The other was a gift from Bobby in middle school. Crooked hearts he'd drawn himself and had made into enamel by a woman at the summer fair. I looked at the hearts. They were imperfect in a way the portal could not compute. I set the brooch back gently and chose the plain one. There's a time for simplicity. There's also a time to remember what's yours. The next morning, an email pretended to be a bill. It was from a vendor I hadn't heard of, addressed to family. The subject line used the word urgent, like a drum. The body explained that a small fee had been placed in a holding pattern and could be resolved by any responsible party. There was a button that said, "Pay now." The font was soothing. I called the number at the bottom, not the button. A man answered and told me he was in charge of linens. "We're covered," he said, confused. "There's an authorization on file. No action required." "Thank you," I said. Sometimes buttons are just buttons. I forwarded the email to Trevor and to the family core with a plain note. "Looks like this is noise. Best to route these back to the person whose name is on the contract." Jessica replied with speed. "Good catch. Thanks for being on it. Travel alerts make everything messy. Appreciate the teamwork." Teamwork implies a shared goal. I stood looking at the word until the phone dimmed. Then I put the phone down and washed my hands. Bleach and lemon. The choir would need chairs set out tonight. The kids would sing too fast and then slow down and then find the right speed together. It always happens. It just takes a hand on the downbeat and someone steady on the up. Before I left, I slipped the Crooked Hearts brooch into my jacket pocket. Not to wear. To carry. A tool can ride in your pocket for weeks before the day it's needed. On the sidewalk, a delivery truck idled at the hydrant, and the driver sat eating from a foil packet with a plastic fork. She looked at me and lifted the fork like a salute. I lifted my hand. We stood for a moment under the same cold light. 2 women on our way to different rooms where other people had arranged furniture and words. I kept walking. Flexibility is useful. So is a backbone. You can own both. You just have to know when each is the right tool for the job. I asked Jessica to meet me somewhere quiet. She sent back an address and a thumbs up. The address belonged to a building that liked to be seen. Glass stacked on glass above a lobby with trees living indoors. A cafe bloomed in the center like a sponsored idea. She waved from a table near the walkway where colleagues would naturally pass. "So much for quiet. Barbara," she said, standing as if we were on a stage with marks taped on the floor. "Coffee. I already ordered." "Black," I said. "Thank you." She sat angled to face the room. The atrium threw our reflections into the glass. In mine, I looked like a woman who had slept fine, but not deep. "First," she said, palms up, "I want to say how grateful I am for your support. Bobby lights up around you. And I get that this is a big transition. Families evolve." "I didn't ask to meet to be soothed," I said. "I asked to be clear." She smiled like she wished I'd taken the opening she'd set. "Totally. Clarity is healthy. Boundaries, right?" "Boundaries," I said. "A mother's job is simple and has 2 parts. Part 1. Raise a son who knows his worth and can walk away from small people. Part 2. Don't become one yourself." She laughed. Good teeth. "We agree. And just to align, this is Bobby's and my wedding. We want you there in a way that feels respectful and contemporary. I'd hate for any legacy behavior to distract from the moment." "Legacy behavior," I said. "Like standing when my son walks in." "Stand, of course." She patted the air. "We're just de-emphasizing certain rituals that center mothers. It's retrograde. The idea that you hand a man over like property. You get that. She didn't ask. We can craft a touchpoint for you. Maybe a quiet first look off stage. Intimate. I'm not asking for a stage, I said. I'm asking for respect that shows in public. She leaned forward. Respect is a vibe, Barbara. It doesn't have to be performative. Respect is a habit, I said. It shows up on Tuesdays at 3 p.m. when nobody's watching. A woman in a trim suit slowed to greet Jessica by name and clap her shoulder. Jessica let the moment happen. She wanted me to see how her world stopped for her. When the woman moved on, Jessica brought her voice lower as if that made it private. Look, I know last week had some awkward beats. The check thing was a misread by the server. I should have intercepted. You could have, I said. I'm saying I hear you. She tapped the table with 2 fingers, a pact with herself. I care about optics because they shape feelings. Bobby's happiness is the North Star. If that means we craft some space for your presence, I'm game. Within reason. Within respect, I said. Aligned. She smiled, then let the smile cool. One procedural note. Trevor mentioned a hiccup with some communications. We get a lot of vendors touching multiple family members. If something asks for money, loop me in. Don't go rogue. I don't want you getting scammed. Noted, I said. You'll also not put my name on anything without asking. She spread her hands. Of course. We left it there. She stood, shook my hand like a photograph was being taken, and escorted me across the lobby in a way that suggested I was her mentor rather than her fiancé's mother. People waved at her. I thought of the hospital, where equipment doesn't wave, but it talks. And when it talks, you listen or you pay for not listening. On the bus home, I watched the city in the window and my face over it. I thought about her words, how they slid. I thought about the way her eyes moved right past Bobby to the room whenever she could. I told myself to breathe the way we breathe before a high note so we don't reach for it wrong. That night, I did something I don't like doing. I looked a woman up online. Her face found me in a dozen different lightings. A profile headshot that had cost exactly as much as it needed to. A video of a talk at a conference where the stage glowed like a promise. Upgrading family culture, the slide said, with arrows going up like prices. She used phrases like guardrails, narrative control, and tradition refreshed for modern stakeholders. The audience clapped at healthy intervals. There was a short clip from a podcast. She laughed with the host about the dance of integrating older generations without letting their fear run the show. She made a little face when she said, older generations. It wasn't rude. It was quick. You could miss it if you wanted to. She told a story about a friend's wedding where the mother over-indexed on tradition and almost turned the reception into a hostage situation of vibes. The host hooted. Jessica smiled a politician's smile. I closed the tab. My computer hummed on the table like a machine deciding what it would be in its next life. The bank texted then, small transaction flagged for confirmation. The merchant name belonged to a company I didn't know and the description mentioned a planner's platform. There was a link to confirm or deny. I didn't touch the link. I called the number on the back of my card. A woman in a quiet room answered and read what she saw on her screen. Looks like an authorization ping from an events portal. Not a charge. Sometimes when a profile is updated, the system checks if a backup card is active. Whose profile? I said. I can't see that, she said. But the contact email ends with the same domain as the one that sent you the wedding portal invite. Deny, I said, and lock it down so that any new backup needs my voice on the line. Done, she said. And now my voice lived in their system like a padlock. I called Trevor next. Strange question, I said. Has anyone added me as a backup payment method without asking me? His cheer faltered for the first time. No, ma'am. We don't do that. We can list you as a contact. That's all. Then your platform bumped my bank just to see if it could. That shouldn't happen. He was quiet, typing. Sometimes an assistant will add a name when they make a team list. If a past event had a mother as a payer role, the template can. I'll clean it. I'm sorry. Clean it, I said. And send me a list of every place my name sits. You have my word. Words are cheap. Work is not. I told myself to watch the work. 2 days later, a delivery truck tried to back into the church lot at the hour the youth choir meets. I heard it from the hallway. Reversing beeps, a man calling to another man over a motor. I went outside and waved them down. You with Mitchell? The driver asked. We've got staging pieces for a rehearsal dinner drop. It says here, deliver to the hall. Build to client contact. Barbara. No, I said. Not here. Not today. He showed me the order on his phone. It had my name like a thumbprint. The hall door cracked and the choir director peered out with sheet music hugged to her chest. We're in the middle of. I know, I said. To the driver, you've got the wrong place by a long mile. Turn around. He shrugged, tired, and did, inching the truck away so he didn't take the downspout with him. The kids watched from the window, noses fogging the glass. The boy who sings too loud, like the world owes him a listen, banged the pane with his palm the way boys do when they want to help. Inside, the director's mouth made a line. Is this your wedding? My son's, I said. This isn't us. She nodded. We'll keep the hour. After rehearsal, I stood with the janitor and helped him fix the door closer that had started to sag under winter. You're handy, he said, like he'd just discovered a new species of woman. I listen when metal talks, I said. It's louder than people think. When I got home, the family core thread was hot. Brandon had posted a photo of a floral arch against a stone wall with the caption, Vibes. Jessica responded with, We'll do clean lines, not rustic. Uncle Ray posted cookies shaped like bells. I typed, a truck tried to deliver a staging kit to the church hall during choir practice. It had my name on the contact. Please remove me from any vendor paperwork. The kids need their hour. Jessica replied, that's a weird glitch. We're not doing anything at a church hall. Might be a prior client template. We'll scrub. Thanks for catching. Then, almost immediately, another message. Also hearing some chatter that you're asking for VIP seats. Totally happy to make room, but we're trying to keep the energy inclusive. I stared at the screen. I haven't asked for any seat beyond one where I can see my son's face, I wrote. Love that, she sent back. We'll optimize sightlines. The word optimize doesn't belong in the same sentence as face. But there it was. At Presbyterian Hospital the next day, a colleague I knew by nod but not by name stopped me by the elevator. Heard a funny thing, she said, amused in advance. Apparently, you're old school about the aisle and seats. I respect the passion. Just don't die on that hill, right? The hill is a chair and a view, I said. Strong women have died on smaller. I pressed the button and let the elevator close like a lid. The portal pinged with 3 new decisions that weren't questions. No speeches. Montage locked. Processional order updated. Calligraphy finalized. My name slid a little further down the seating galaxy. Orbit altered by an invisible hand. I told myself to breathe. Air in, air out. Work the tool you have. Patience. I spent the evening fixing a neighbor's sewing machine. Winter is the right time to fix something meant for spring. The tension mechanism needed quiet hands. So did I. After I washed up, the phone buzzed. Local, a number I didn't know. Mrs. Mitchell? A woman asked. She sounded like someone who had carried heavy trays for a living and learned to make her voice light. Yes. I'm with the venue team at Riverside Manor. We don't know each other. This is off the record. I saw something in the portal notes tied to your profile and didn't like it. It's probably nothing, but I've done enough of these to know when a story is being built. I sat down. The chair felt like it had gained weight. Go on. There's a line item for a surprise moment at the rehearsal dinner labeled Family Traditions Remix. It says, chair gag, optical test, timing with floor manager. Ensure videographer stationed. It's tagged to the planner's assistant and someone with your future daughter-in-law's initials. The kitchen got very still. Even the refrigerator quieted to hear. Maybe it's harmless, she rushed. Sometimes people do goofy things. But the phrasing, gag, optical, and the link to a viral clip brainstorming doc. I don't like it. I breathed in and out and placed each breath where it belonged. Thank you for calling. I didn't call you, she said. We didn't talk. But if anyone tries to move you to a seat that's easy to film, say no. If someone tells you to wait for a cue, don't. You didn't hear that from me. Understood. She hesitated. You come across as a lady in the notes, Mrs. Mitchell. That word shows up more than once. People use it when they want you to stand still while they move things around you. I appreciate the translation, I said. We hung up. I stood at the sink and washed my hands until the lemon beat the bleach again. The towel felt thin where I'd folded it too hard. I set it to dry and looked at the navy dress on the chair and saw a shadow of a hand pulling it away at the wrong time. I pictured someone laughing in a clean, efficient way. I pictured Bobby's face looking for me and finding empty air. I said the word no out loud in the kitchen just to make sure my voice remembered it. It sounded steady enough. I pictured the atrium and the coffee and the way Jessica had sat facing the room. Then I pictured a line in the dust on my workbench where a tool had rested so long it left a clean stripe. You can see lines best when dust settles. You can also draw them. I took out a pad and wrote down 3 things. 1. Don't accept a chair you didn't choose. 2. Stand when you need to, whether invited or not. 3. Keep eyes on Bobby, not on the room. Under that, I wrote in smaller letters, tools don't care about eras. They care about hands. The phone buzzed once with a new photo of centerpieces in the family core. It buzzed again with a clip from Jessica's talk making the rounds with people who like clean fonts. I set the phone face down like a lid on a pot. At the window, the street lamp held its circle. A woman crossed through the light and didn't look up. She had the posture of someone who used to let people arrange her and had decided recently to become inconvenient. I watched her go and decided to practice. I pulled the chair back from the table and then pushed it in. I did it again until the sound of wood touching would belong to me. The next ping was from the planner's portal. A tiny banner that said, Vendor alignment call tomorrow. Optional for family. The word optional is the place you hide things you don't want to own later. I clicked, attend. Before bed, I called Mr. Chen. If anyone asks about a rehearsal dinner at the church hall, I will tell them to rehearse their good sense instead, he said. You need dumplings. I cook heavy when I'm mad. Not yet, I said. But keep your stove warm. When I turned off the light, the room did not get darker. Inside my head, a small bright square glowed with a woman's off-the-record voice. You're being set up to be embarrassed. I set my hands flat on the table and felt the grain. Lines in would tell you where it will split if you force it. They also tell you where it will hold if you aim your effort right. I slept like a nurse in a storm. Enough to be useful, shallow enough to wake fast. In the morning, I put on the navy dress and went to work with the list in my pocket and the word no oiled and ready. The vendor alignment call opened with a smile I could hear. Welcome, team, Trevor said. Running order, optics, and contingencies. We're focused on flow. Boxes glowed green as people joined. Jessica's mic was crisp. Brandon's face appeared in a tile with perfect lighting. I kept mine off and listened. Sightlines, the videographer said. We're staging the parents here and here for reaction coverage. Coverage, I said, unmuted. That's a news word. Parents aren't scenery. A small pause. Jessica stepped in smoothly. What Barbara means is we want dignity. We agree. Our goal is to minimize friction and keep the moment contemporary. What I mean, I said, is chairs belong under people, not ideas. Trevor made a bright note sound with his mouth. Noted. We'll balance respect and flow. Flo does a lot of work in rooms like these. That afternoon, the portal spit out a diagram for the dinner. A long table for the couple and party. 2 satellites in the back labeled, Family Overflow. My name sat at the rim of one satellite like a moon. The caption read, Draft, subject to sponsor considerations and elders. Sponsor again. Money has a way of bringing its own chair. I arrived at the rehearsal early enough to catch the venue before it decided who belonged where. Riverside Manor was trimmed and ready, a place that took pride in looking effortless. Staff moved like they had keys in their pockets and secrets in their heads. The cold air held still inside the hedges. A white runner practiced being a river down the aisle. Bobby came toward me, hair fresh, warmth in his face even with the wind. Hi, Mom. We hugged. That's a ritual that doesn't need refreshing. Jessica followed, coat unbuttoned like rules were for other people. Crew, we're tight on light, she called to the photographer. Let's get couple shots while everyone parks. We'll do a quick run first, Trevor said, moving people on his list like magnets. Positions. A planner's assistant handed me a card with my name. We'll seat you here for practice, Mrs. Mitchell, and dinner after. The card pointed to the outer ring. I smiled the way you do when a server brings the wrong dish and you don't want to ruin the night. I'll hold on to this until we're actually sitting, I said. The assistant hesitated, then scribbled on her clipboard and flowed away. We walked the aisle. The officiant explained who would stand where and when to breathe. Bobby squeezed my arm once where it meets the elbow. You okay? Better than okay, I said. On the day, I'll be fine. I stood where mothers stand for the practice walk. Jessica shifted the order. We're actually going to have you enter from the side, Barbara, so we can maintain our composition. The main sight line is the couple. On the day, I said evenly, I'll walk my son down an aisle. We can rehearse that or not. There was a rustle in the hedge that sounded like someone choosing whether to argue. Trevor stepped in with a compromise that was really a delay. Let's walk it both ways and see what sings. We walked it the old way. It sang. After the rehearsal, the dinner lived in a private room off a hotel near the park. Long tables, white cloths ironed flat, place cards with calligraphed flourishes that made everyone look more expensive than they are. A server poured water without looking at faces. I looked for my name and found it on the far satellite. Back to the door, sightline to a wall sconce. Brandon appeared at my shoulder, smelling like a candle named Winter City. You found your perch, he said. We put elders and VIPs up front to keep the energy calibrated. He smiled without asking if I was an elder or a VIP. This room is such a vibe from the back though. Very moody. I like to see my son's face when he laughs, I said. Oh, totally. He leaned in as if to tell me something intimate. Also, little tip from the content team. Lower angles are slimming. You'll love the footage from back here. I didn't come to be filmed, I said. We're all always being filmed, he said cheerfully and slid away like a good skate. A server appeared with a linen envelope. Mrs. Mitchell, our manager asked me to pass along this pre-authorization for tonight's package. Any family member can initial. The envelope carried a batched com I didn't trust. I handed it back. Return it to whoever signed the contract. If that person has a problem, they know my number. Of course, the server said, grateful for direction. At the main table, Jessica tapped a spoon for silence she already had. Short and sweet tonight, she said. We respect everyone's time. Quick hellos, then mingle. Tomorrow we let the story tell itself. A woman from upstairs at Presbyterian waved from across the room like we were playing charades. When she reached me, She lowered her voice the way people do when they're about to repeat something they shouldn't. Heard you asked to be moved to the VIP row, she said, amused like she'd stumbled into a sitcom. Wanted a better sightline? Love the passion, but... No, I said. I asked to see my son's face. She grinned, unabashed. Same thing. Different words, different things, I said, and returned my eyes to the front where Bobby laughed at something small and true. Uncle Ray found me with a plate of appetizers and a weapons-grade glare. They had you back here? I'll lift this whole table and move it myself. You'll pinch your back, I said. Eat one of those little pies before you say anything you can't unsay. He popped a pie into my mouth like we were still in the kitchen at a family reunion. Your face is calm but your shoulders are up, he said. Breathe. I did. Air in, air out. The habit holds. Jessica arrived with the photographer in tow. Borrowing Bobby, she said to Uncle Ray and to me. We're doing couples and party first while the light holds, then we'll swing back for parent moments. I'll take my moment now, I said lightly. I stepped to Bobby. Walk with me to the doorway. We stood there for 30 seconds out of the flow and watched the room the way you look at a machine to see where it leaks. You doing okay? He asked. I am, I said. Keep your elbows close when people hustle you. It keeps you steady without looking like a fight. He smiled. I learned that from you. Jessica called his name like a cue. He squeezed my hand and went. She guided him to a spot where the videographer had already set a mark. Dinner began. Voices made a low ceiling. The prime seats laughed in a way that asked the room to applaud their laughter. At my table, a groomsman's cousin retold a story about a wedding somewhere else where the mother had made it about herself and insisted on a whole toast about protecting her baby. He laughed in the careful way of a man on someone else's team. Baby is a house word, I said. It means I fix the sink and carry the boxes. He blinked, processing, then nodded like he'd been given homework. The manager came by with an apology practiced in mirrors. Mrs. Mitchell, that earlier envelope was a template error. We've scrubbed it. Good, I said. Templates are like rumors. They find mouths. As plates cleared, a small camera moved through the air like a patient insect. It found faces that reacted well, then hovered. When it reached our table, it considered us and decided against it. I felt a shift behind me. Not wind. Intention. A shadow fell over my place setting. Jessica's voice arrived above my left shoulder, pitched for me but projected for others. How's the vibe back here, Barbara? Up to your standards. She laughed as if she'd told a joke with no victim. I turned just enough to include her in my frame. She stood with one hand on the top rail of my chair, fingers loose like a woman testing a fence. The photographer angled slightly, and a groomsman drifted to the other side of my chair with a napkin he pretended to be folding. Standards are for measurements, I said. I measure sightlines. Jessica nodded like a director agreeing to a note she would ignore later. Her hand stayed on the chair. The groomsman made a small adjustment to nothing. Bobby saw us and started across the room. Brandon intercepted with a bouquet and a list of names that had to be tagged in a photo. Bobby allowed himself to be turned because that's what kind people do when asked publicly. Jessica lowered her mouth to my ear without lowering her volume. We're moving you for a beat, she said, cheerful. Just for a rehearsal bit. Fun thing. Bobby wants to test a camera angle. No, I said quietly. The word came out smooth. No extra muscle. I sit where I sit. On the day, I stand when I need to. The smile at the edge of her mouth thinned. Don't be rigid, Barbara. We're telling a story. I'm not your prop, I said. She straightened. The photographer looked to her for a cue. She fluttered her fingers. Not yet. The groomsman reset his napkin for the third time. A man waiting to be useful. From the front, someone called for a toast, and the room tilted toward the main table. Jessica took her hand off my chair. My shoulders dropped the inch they'd been holding. Uncle Ray appeared fast, like he had trained for it. He set his hand on the back of my chair where hers had been. "I like this wood grain better than the grain up front," he announced to no one. "Makes a person sit straighter." The toast blessed nothing in particular, which is how some blessings go. Eyes shone where eyes had been told to shine. The camera drifted again. When quiet returned, Bobby slipped to me and folded himself into the empty chair at my side. "I'm sorry," he said. "People have been making decisions so fast I can't always see them." "It's a lot of light in a small room," I said. "Light can blind as quick as it shows." He put his head on my shoulder for a moment I wished I could bottle. "Tomorrow's the real thing," he whispered. "We'll do it right. We'll do it with dignity," I said. He stood and was reabsorbed by lists and lenses and people who enjoy being in charge of cheerful things. Later, coats appeared and the room loosened. As I pushed my chair back to stand, the back leg scraped the floor with a note I recognized from the hospital. A warning kind of music. The told you so sound would makes before it goes. I nudged the chair with my shoe. One leg had been nudged off the rug onto the slick edge of the floor. Easy to roll, easy to tilt. I reset it square under the table and looked up. Across the room, Jessica watched me watching the chair. She wasn't smiling. Not exactly. She was calibrating. She drifted closer as people hugged goodbyes. Her path curved behind me again, slow as a woman stretching. Her fingertips ghosted the top rail once, twice, like a pianist finding middle C. I slid my chair forward until the front legs kissed the table. The wood said a small, solid yes. She kept walking, palms open to another conversation, and left the air behind my shoulders feeling rearranged. On the way out, the videographer checked his angles against the door and made a note. I caught the word coverage again, spoken like a prayer. In the hallway, Trevor paused me. "Tomorrow will be beautiful," he said with conviction. "We've solved the little frictions." "Friction keeps you from slipping," I said. He blinked, then smiled because he had a smile for every sentence. "Sleep well, Barbara. Big day." Outside, the night had put the city under glass. I walked to the bus with Uncle Ray talking about nothing on purpose. At the corner, I looked back at the hotel window. Figures moved like a storyboard being adjusted. Somewhere upstairs, a chair scraped. The sound found me the way a loose hinge finds a nurse's ear. At home, I hung the navy dress on the same chair I'd left it on for weeks. I checked its legs like a woman checking door hinges before a storm. I pressed down with my palms. Solid. The room said yes. Then I set my hands on the table and practiced the word again. Quiet so it would be ready to go loud if it had to. No. Tomorrow, as the man once said, would be the real thing. Tonight, the story had walked behind my chair and tried the grip. I had felt the hand. The rest would come. When I turned off the light, the shape of that hand stayed in the dark like a watermark. The morning came, dressed like a promise. I ironed the plain navy dress until it lay obedient, and slid the crooked heart's brooch, Bobby's old gift, into my jacket pocket where a woman keeps a handkerchief. A tool you don't show until you need it. Mr. Chen knocked once and pushed a paper bag through the door like contraband kindness. "For your pockets," he said. "Sugar saves a woman in long ceremonies." The dog wheezed in agreement. "I'll pay you back in hymns," I said. "Sing loud," he said. "Make them think there are 3 of you." Riverside Manor had polished itself to a shine. Staff glided over the paths, making invisible things happen. The hedges held their breath. Trevor moved through the quiet like a conductor with a metronome somewhere inside him. He pressed a corsage into my hand, then patted my sleeve as if I'd done something helpful. "Run of show," he murmured. "We kept the aisle. Thank you for trusting the process." He said it like we'd both won at something and no one had bled. Jessica appeared with that lilt in her step that says the room knows her name. "We're looking good, gang. Mother of the groom." She dipped her head toward me. "Thanks for being flexible on the micro beats." I'm steady on the big ones, I said. She grinned as if that was her line. Bobby arrived like a note that had been building all morning and finally rang. He took my arm, and for a moment we were a tiny duet separate from the orchestra of lists and lenses. "How's the breath?" he asked. "Where I put it," I said. The officiant's voice tested the air. Guests found their seats. A string trio leaned into a song that wanted to be a prayer. I felt the runner under my shoes like a strip of river made solid. We stood at the mouth of the aisle. I looked down it and thought of the hallway at his kindergarten. The first time I let him walk ahead of me to a door, and he didn't look back until he was inside. Today he didn't look back either. He looked forward, chin up. Sure. I matched his pace. The room softened around the edges. People turned to watch. I kept my eyes where they belonged, on my son, on the shape of the future he was choosing. At the front, I placed his hand where he asked me to. Not a transaction. A blessing. I caught Jessica's eye long enough to make sure she saw me see her. She did. The officiant spoke. Words about promise and patience and weathering. Bobby's voice was clear. Jessica was practiced. Rings went on like small planets finding orbits. When we took our seats, a planner's assistant tried to float my chair toward the side. I put a palm on the back and felt the grain. "I'm good here," I said. She flowed away because water always seeks the easiest path. The ceremony closed on a held note and the room exhaled. People released the smiles they had been saving. Out in the garden, a server handed me water and gratitude for existing. Cameras traced arcs in the air. We did photos in piles. Family party, a friend from school, Uncle Ray pretending to scowl, which is how he shows love when rooms get too perfect. I smiled until my cheeks felt like they'd been working a double shift. Inside, the reception had made itself busy. Tables became islands. Lights went warm like memory. A small camera hovered again, patient as a moth. The DJ made promises. The seating chart shined in a frame. My name lived at a table farther back than I'd like, but not so far I couldn't see Bobby's face. I accepted the compromise like you accept a scar. You don't look for it, but you don't deny it either. Jessica moved through the room, receiving compliments that belonged to the florist and the kitchen and the sky. She knew where to stand to be thanked. She drifted past me with a clap to my shoulder and an aside pitched for a nearby microphone. "Looking sharp, Barbara. You clean up well." She laughed, then angled toward the center as if the night had handrails only she could see. Dinner came on plates designed to be both food and opinion. I ate with attention. People came by to shake my hand and tell me I'd done a good job raising a man who made rooms better. They were right. And I said, "Thank you." At some point, the camera found our table and lingered. A young woman I didn't know, tie already loose, phone already up, hovered near the edge, narrating for someone who wasn't there. "Mom's at the back, but she's chill," she said to her camera. "It's modern. No cringe speeches. So clean." I let the word clean pass through me without lodging. Jessica tapped a glass with the back of a spoon and got silence the way only certain people can. "Friends," she said. "Tonight is about joy and flow. No speeches, no heavy moments. Just a celebration. We're going to remix a couple traditions for fun." She made eye contact with the videographer. "You'll love it." The first dance happened. It was polished and modest and designed not to make anyone cry too much. Bobby caught my eye mid-turn and I saw the little boy who used to dance on my feet, asking me to be taller for him. I stood taller without moving. Then, a moment. Jessica called it that from the mic. "Tiny game," she said. "We're testing a viral trend. Chairs and cheers keeps the energy up." The staff rolled in 2 chairs to the center for the couple and placed a third off to the side. The videographer set his mark at a low angle. The camera kid drifted nearer our table, jittery with anticipation. "Parents, we love you," Jessica said brightly. "But this one is for the couple. Please enjoy from your seats." She smiled toward me the way a woman smiles at a dog to show she's not scared of it. They played the game. It was simple, designed to look spontaneous. Rehearsed a dozen times. Laughter came on cue. The third chair sat empty like a punchline waiting for a victim. When the DJ slid into a new track, staff began moving chairs in from the sides to make a circle. Family around the couple, someone called. Quick photo moment. People surged politely. A hand brushed my elbow, guiding without grabbing. I let myself be ushered to the outer edge where I could still see. Jessica materialized at my back, warm from applause. "Barbara," she said, loud enough to include 3 nearby tables. "Come up a bit. We've got a seat for you right near the action. VIP view." "I'm fine here," I said. "Don't be stubborn," she said lightly, like a woman loosening a screw that wasn't hers to touch. "It's a vibe." She slid a chair from the inner ring and patted it. A groomsman I'd seen all week without learning his name adjusted a rug edge under it with theatrical care. The videographer drifted right, lens low. The camera kid found my face on his screen and whispered, "Oh man, oh man." I stepped forward 1 pace to keep my sightline clear and kept my hands at my sides. Jessica stood behind the chair, one hand resting on the top rail like a promise. She looked left toward the DJ, then right toward the videographer, then past me toward Bobby. Bobby was laughing at something his uncle had said. He turned and saw us and started moving through people, apologizing with his shoulders for existing. It takes time to cross a crowd, even when it parts for you. He was halfway when the music hit a cue and Jessica's eyes brightened the way a pilot's lights do on a runway. She pulled the chair. It wasn't dramatic. That's the thing. It was a tiny movement of a woman who has practiced not looking like she's doing what she's doing. The chair skated back 2 inches as I bent my knees to sit. Wood on floor made that warning note I know from the hospital. The front legs found air. My body followed. I caught myself with a hand against the table that someone had pushed too close. The table slid. The glass tipped. I went down. Not hard enough to break anything. Hard enough to make the room say, "Oh," in one breath. The video will show later that the people nearest me laughed first because that's what bodies do when a thing looks like a skit. It will also show how the laugh died when my dress caught on the chair's back post and tore with a sound like ripping tape. Silence happens 2 ways at a wedding, for vows and for shame. This was the second kind. The music faltered and then forgot its job. The DJ's hand hovered. The camera drank everything. Jessica bent over me with a grin for the room. "Whoa," she said, palms up like she'd been as surprised as anyone. Then, low enough for my ear, "Your place is on the floor, old woman." Bobby was there before the sentence finished. He dropped to his knees, hands on my shoulders, his face white with that particular fear sons get when a parent falls. "Mom." "I'm all right," I said, because he needed the words first. My breath was where I'd left it. I put weight in my heels and stood with the kind of care that keeps a machine from stripping its threads. The dress hung crooked like it had opinions. Uncle Ray appeared with a pin from nowhere and a look for Jessica that could salt a road. People spoke all at once in the voice you use to soothe the horse. "She's fine. Just a stumble. Happens." The camera kid kept filming. His mouth had stopped narrating. Jessica raised both hands. "All good. All good. Let's give it up for Barbara." She started a clap that wanted to become forgiveness, then backed it down when she felt the air. She leaned close again with a stage whisper meant to carry to 3 tables. "Floors are slick, right? We'll get some traction on that for the venue." I looked at her the way I look at a needle before I decide which vein not to use. "You pulled the chair," I said quietly. "Don't lie in front of my son." A muscle jumped in her jaw. "You're making a scene, Barbara." "You made it," I said. A staffer in a dark blazer, some kind of on-site mediator, materialized like damage control with teeth. She spoke to me without looking me in the eye, the way people talk to officials. "Ma'am, if you'd like to step into the foyer for a breath, We can reset optics. I'll take my breath right here, I said and did. In, out. My heels found the floor. The room tilted toward me and then away like a tide, trying to decide if it wanted to be part of the story. Bobby stood, squared himself beside me, and turned to the room. We're going to take 5 minutes, he said, voice steady in that way he gets from his father. Everyone breathe and get some water. He walked me to the edge of the dance floor. Are you hurt? Only my dress, I said. And that can be mended or thrown out. His mouth shook and then set. I saw her, he whispered. I saw her hand. I nodded once. The yes lived in my eyes, not my head. Across the room, a door opened on cold air, and 2 figures stepped in with the weather still on them. Heads turned. Whispers learned a new name. Jessica's parents had arrived. They looked like people who had been in transit long enough to stop caring what transit does to a person. The woman adjusted her scarf and took in the room in one pass, landing on her daughter and then on Bobby. The man, tall, shoulders you could hang a coat on, scanned in a different pattern. Training shows up in how someone searches a space. Jessica's face changed shape 3 times in a second. She smiled, stopped, started again. Mom, Dad. She moved toward them with that same lilt, faster now. A woman trying to get in front of a story. The man stepped around her without breaking stride. He had lines at the corners of his eyes that come from sun and squinting at distance. He moved like someone who had told other people where to stand and had earned the right. He was 20 feet away when he fixed on me, recalibrated, and kept coming. He stopped 3 feet short, like a soldier stopping at a superior's desk. His voice didn't carry, but it filled the space. Ma'am, he said, and there was something old and formal in it. His eyes went to the tear in my dress, down to my shoes like he was inventorying me for a report, back to my face like he had found a memory there. He swallowed, and the room leaned in to listen to a private thing. Ma'am, he said again softer, as if he were trying on a name that didn't belong to tonight. Is that really you? The woman said again softer. Is that really you? Up close, she looked older than the photos on the wall near the coat check. Less lacquer, more weather. Her eyes did that quick scan you learn when there are too many variables in a room. Then they fixed on me. Lieutenant Mitchell, she said. The name landed like a salute. I'll be damned. For a second, the reception lost its script. The DJ's hand hovered. The camera drifted. The chatter thinned. People turned their heads the way birds do together. Jessica reached her, smile stretched. Mom, this is Barbara. Bobby's. I know who she is, the woman said without looking away. She extended her hand to me like a person asking permission to speak. I stood straight and took it. Her grip was firm without theater. Colonel Vale, I said, because now I had a name to set with a face, and because old habits keep a woman from slouching. She breathed out a laugh that wasn't about humor. Winter convoy, flat tire out by the river road. Our lead truck ate a rock and your hands made it spit. We were burning light and you said, give me 10 and stop talking. You gave us 7. Her mouth tightened. We made it through. You didn't take a medal. You took a cup of bad coffee and walked away. Uncle Ray made a small noise that might have been, I knew it, and might have been a prayer. Jessica's smile tried to hold. Mom, that was years ago. Different context. Tonight's about respect, the colonel said, finally turning to her. Her voice didn't rise. She didn't have to. I just watched this woman stand up off a floor she didn't choose. The room's attention shifted like a lens finding focus. People who hadn't seen the fall looked at people who had. Information moved the way air moves when a door opens to weather. The on-site manager, the mediator from earlier, reappeared with a clipboard and a velvet rope in her tone. We're so glad everyone is all right. For the venue's records, we'll need to gather statements to clarify the optics. Not optics, the colonel said. Facts. She blinked. Recalibrated. Of course. Facts. She made a note with a pen that had the venue's name in cursive. Jessica lifted her hands, palms out. There's nothing to gather. It was a slip. Floors are slick. We'll keep it moving. No need to dramatize. Accidents don't look for cues, I said. Yours did. She tipped her head, appeal in her smile now. Barbara, come on. Bobby stepped between us. He looked at his mother-in-law, then at me, then at Jessica. His eyes were clear in that way that makes a person check their inventory of excuses. Mom, he said to me softly. Is she the reason you? He stopped, changed tenses. You served. Why didn't you tell me? Because stories belong in actions, I said. And because most rooms don't need the old ones to do the work in front of them. The Colonel nodded as if I'd passed an inspection I didn't know I was taking. She turned to the nearest staffer. Get Mrs. Mitchell a proper chair, solid footing, and get her a jacket if the house keeps spares. She looked back to me. Or we find someone with a needle. Uncle Ray had one already. Of course he did, and threaded it like a field medic. Hold still, he said, and pinned the tear with hands that had mended more than clothes. Across the room, a whisper became a figure cutting through guests with purpose. It was the venue manager's boss, if posture can be a job title. She arrived with apologies already formed. We're terribly sorry for the disruption. If we can relocate a few folks for logistics. You can relocate the idea that this is logistics, I said, mild as a woman checking a pulse. We're good where we are. The boss looked to Jessica because some people always do. She smiled her practiced smile. We're all good. A little slip. We'll keep the celebration on track. The Colonel's eyes moved to the third chair, still angled like a trick, waiting for a second chance. She placed 2 fingers on the rail, tested, and set it square against the floor with a scrape that sounded like a verdict. I hate viral games, she said to no one in particular. They make cowards brave. Something in the crowd exhaled. A man I knew only as a neighbor of a neighbor edged closer, phone in hand, screen lit. He looked like a person deciding whether to be useful. Ma'am, he said to me, tentative. I think I have the angle. I nodded once. He held up the phone. The video wasn't art. It didn't need to be. You could see Jessica's hand on the chair. You could see the look she wore when she thought no one had the lens. You could hear her mouth near my ear and the sentence she thought had flown under the music. Your place is on the floor, old woman. The man with the phone swallowed. I didn't post it. Not yet. It's yours first. My chest felt the way metal feels when you tap it and wait for the ring. Checking for cracks. The ring held. I nodded again. Thank you. Jessica saw the rectangle of light and moved toward it with a lawyer's speed. Let's not crowd, she said, genial, reaching without reaching. No need to misinterpret a playful. Playful is when the worst outcome is laughter, the Colonel said, eyes on the screen. This isn't that. The on-site manager lifted her clipboard an inch. For the record, she began, then found the Colonel's eyes and lowered it. We'll update the incident report. Bobby's hand tightened on my arm. I'm sorry, he whispered, and then shook his head quickly like he'd corrected himself. No, I don't accept the premise where I apologize for someone else. I looked at him. The little boy on my shoulders had become a man while I was busy learning how to let go. You don't have to carry that weight, I said. It isn't yours. Jessica tried a different tack. The conciliatory one she uses when a client's eyebrows go up. I was thoughtless. I'm sorry you slipped. Let's not blow this up. Daughter, the Colonel said. Not kindly. This is the part where you tell the truth and accept the consequences. Not the part where you manage outcomes. She didn't raise her voice. She didn't need to. Her attention did the work. Brandon materialized with a smile made of glass. We're losing the room, he whispered like a weather report. Maybe we pivot to cake. We pivot to accountability, the colonel said. The room adjusted around that word like furniture being moved back where it belongs. The venue boss cleared her throat and found a neutral she could stand on. We'll need statements, she said properly this time. Mrs. Mitchell, Mr. Bobby, Ms. Vale. She glanced at Jessica and then deliberately changed the order. Colonel Vale. And anyone with footage. We'll also pause any planned content moments until further notice. Content moments. The phrase made something in me want to laugh and didn't get permission. A familiar face eased up beside me. The choir director, hair tucked under a winter hat she hadn't bothered to remove. I was dropping something to the hotel next door when Mr. Chen texted me, she said under the noise. I came to stand where I should. Thank you, I said. She lowered her voice further. People will ask you to smooth this for them. They'll use words like grace and unity. They'll mean silence. Decide now if you're willing. I'm willing to be kind, I said. I'm not willing to be erased. She smiled with her eyes. Then sing the note and hold it. We'll find you on the pitch. The manager ushered us toward a side room with a table and 2 chairs and a pitcher of water that had decided to sweat for the occasion. The colonel came with us and sat without being asked. Jessica hovered until the boss gestured her to a chair like a reminder about gravity. The manager clicked her pen. Tell me what happened, she said to me first. I told it plain. Chair, hand, floor, the sentence, the tear. Not an essay, a diagram. She turned to Bobby. I saw her pull it, Bobby said. I heard her. I won't repeat the line because it was meant to put my mother under my feet and I won't participate in that. His voice didn't shake. Jessica started a sentence with, if anyone felt, and 3 faces moved in the same direction at once. Mine, Bobby's, the colonel's. She changed it mid-flight. I did a cruel thing and tried to wrap it in comedy, she said, suddenly fluent in the truth. I didn't think she'd actually fall. That's not an excuse. The manager wrote without looking up. We'll annotate the report. We'll also provide our footage. You have house cameras, I said. She met my eyes. We do. People feel safer when they think we don't. The colonel turned to me. If you want this quiet, she said, it can be quiet. If you want it loud, it will be loud in the right places. I thought of the kids in the choir. Of the boy who sings too loud until the note lands. Of Mr. Chen's dog and the way it barks once, satisfied. I thought of the bank app's gentle warnings. Of the envelope of bills under my lamp. Of the way a chair sounds when it's moved with purpose. I thought of Bobby's hand in the crook of my arm and the runner under our feet. I want it true, I said. Whatever volume true requires. The colonel nodded. Then true it is. We stepped back into the reception. The room had changed temperature. Not colder. Clearer. Conversations responded to our faces like dials being adjusted. The videographer stood with his rig at his hip. Not hunting for angles now, but waiting to be told what to witness. Brandon approached the colonel with a stack of phrases people use when they need to make a problem go to the car for a while. She listened and then said a sentence that ended them. A woman who pulls a chair from under her elder in front of her husband is not ready to be in front of a room. Jessica's mouth worked. Apologize, the colonel said to the room, not just to me. Properly. No spin. Then leave the center of the night. Silence arranged itself so we could hear the choice. Jessica looked at Bobby. He looked back at her the way a clear sky looks at a person who thought the weather was theirs to schedule. She swallowed. I'm sorry, she said to me. And then, after a small war behind her eyes, to the room. I did a cruel thing. I humiliated a woman who deserved honor. I'm asking your forgiveness and not assuming it. A few people started to clap because that's what people do when a sentence sounds like the end of a scene. The colonel lifted a hand without looking at them, and the clapping died the way it should when the point isn't applause. The choir director slid to my side again. It's going to wash through the circles by morning, she murmured. There will be people who say you should have taken it in private for the good of the family. The good of the family is light, I said. Light and chairs that don't move. She smiled. Then keep the light on. The neighbor of a neighbor reappeared with his phone at his chest like it might burn his palm. This angle shows the hand and the whisper, he said quietly. And the look right after. Do you want me to send it to you? Send it, I said. To my son. He blinked, then smiled, relieved to be given useful work. Yes, ma'am. He airdropped it to Bobby. His phone chimed. He watched, and everything in his face that had been undecided, decided. He didn't cry. He didn't shake. He lifted his chin the way he did on the aisle and took a breath deep enough to carry farther than the room. He put the phone in my hand. You should have this too, he said. Not for posting. For remembering. For when someone tries to retell it pretty. The screen cooled in my palm like a tool after a cut. The thumbnail sat there, my dress, her hand, the tilt of a chair that didn't move itself. Somewhere near the doors, a murmur rose and drifted like a weather front. Someone had said, police as a concept, and someone else had said, let's not ruin the night. Mr. Chen's text popped on my lock screen before I could put the phone away. I'm in the back with the dumplings. Say the word. I smiled at the ceiling because if you don't, you miss your own luck. The colonel's hand touched my elbow. You saved my people once, she said. Let me save yours from a story that lies. I nodded. We'll do the work. She squared her shoulders and stepped toward the center again to speak. Before she did, the neighbor of a neighbor, sweat beading now from the effort of being brave in public, pressed his phone fully into my hand instead of just the file. Keep it, he said. You'll need the whole thing. Audio and all. On the screen, frozen in miniature, my body tipped, her hand moved, and a mouth near my ear formed the words I had already memorized. I let the image sit. The DJ waited for a cue that wasn't coming from the person he expected. The room waited too, and in my palm, proof waited, quiet as a needle in a pocket, ready to be lifted when the moment called for it.